Hello, everyone. My name is Anna Rue, and I'm a folklorist at the University of Wisconsin-Madison. I am really excited to be co-hosting today's presentation and performance by Ralph and Jana Tutela from Laulu, Aika, and along with fellow UW folklorists Tom Dubois and Marcus Sederstrom. For those of you joining us for the first time as part of this year-long and virtual FinFest, a hearty welcome to you. I want to open by thanking all of you for being here. Great thanks to FinFest for organizing this fabulous series of events, and also the Center for the Study of Upper Midwestern Cultures at UW-Madison, and the Sustaining Scandinavian Folk Arts in the Upper Midwest project, also known as Nordic Folklife, of which Marcus and Tom and I are a part. We're proud to be co-sponsoring this performance and the 5 other events in the Finnish American Music Series throughout 2021. We had over 200 people registered and RSVP'd for today's event supporting FinFest and Finnish American music, which is really exciting to see. We'll be making some links available to all of you so you can follow up for more from FinFest, the Sustaining Scandinavian Folk Arts in the Upper Midwest project, and the Center for the Study of Upper Midwestern Cultures. This is a live program held on the Zoom webinar platform. That means that the presenters can't see or hear the audience, and that the audience members can't see or hear each other. We will have time for questions at the end, and you can use the Q&A button at the bottom of your screen to ask your questions. I will then share those questions with the presenters towards the end of today's program. We'll be recording this session today and then sharing it through the FinFest website, as well as the YouTube channel for the Center of the Study of Upper Midwest. Roll that off my tongue pretty easily by now, but no. And so now for today's presentation, we'll be bringing you songs of the Finnish migration with Laulu, Aika, Tom Dubois, and Marcus Sederstrom. So I'll begin by introducing our speakers really briefly, and then I'll turn it over to them. Jana and Ralph Tutela are Twin Cities-based musicians and members of the long-standing Finnish music group Finhall. In 2017, they formed a second group, Laulu, Aika, to recruit new performers of Finnish American music and dance. Jana and Ralph also play together as a duo, singing and playing Finnish, Finnish American, Swedish, and other Nordic folk dance music on the nyckelharpa, mandolin, harmonica, ukulele, and accordion. Tom Dubois is a folklorist who focuses on Finnish, Sapmi, and other Nordic cultures. He's taught both at the University of Washington, Seattle, and the University of Wisconsin-Madison. He's a past Finlandia Foundation Lecturer of the Year and has a long-standing relationship with FinFest, having presented many times at FinFest over the years. Marcus Sederstrom is a folklorist working at the Department of German, Nordic, and Slavic at UW-Madison as a community curator of Nordic American folklore on the Sustaining Scandinavian Folk Arts in the Upper Midwest project. His research interests include immigration to the United States and Nordic American folklife. Together, Tom and Marcus have co-edited the book Songs of the Finnish Migration, a bilingual anthology, which is available through UW-Wisconsin Press. And we'll be providing links for all of these bands and organizations in the chat for you to follow up on. But now I'm going to turn it over to Marcus and Tom. And the band has requested that we leave our videos on to sort of simulate a mini audience for them. So you'll be seeing us kind of bob around on your screen throughout. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Anna. I'm going to take it off then and wish everyone hyvää huomenta, hyvää päivää, hyvää ilta. I don't know which time zone you're in at the moment. And of course, you may be watching this after the fact, and in that case, use whichever of those greetings you would like. But we're just so glad that you joined us for this event. And I personally am just so glad that FinFest has found a way to continue its important work in this pandemic year. I was reflecting back on my relationship with FinFest, and the first FinFest I went to was in 1995, so it's kind of a while ago, and it's been just a wonderful experience to have this relationship with FinFest, and FinFest is a unique part of Finnish American culture and life. It's an organic community product that the Finnish Americans and Finns make together year after year, and take in new directions. And we're contributing that today by looking at this book, which also reflects Finnish American culture, past and present, and I hope future. And it's a book that was originally written by or compiled by Simo Westerholm, a great folklorist and folk music specialist in Finland. In 1983, he pulled together this book, Reisavaisen laulu Amerikan siirtolaislauluja, or the Traveler's Song to America, songs of migrants. And what he did was he went to all kinds of archives. He looked at published works. He listened to old 78s and came up with a collection of songs that reflected the experience of Finnish Americans or Finns coming to North America, not just the United States, but also Canada, and sometimes traveling back home to Finland periodically or permanently. And he brought those together. He researched, often they were just the published texts or archival texts. So he found the melodies for those and he put those together, and he created this fantastic work. Which was very important in Finland and relatively unknown in the United States. It didn't get the kind of play that it should have gotten. It wasn't carried in many American libraries and so forth, but it was a really golden nugget of information and culture. And then my flash forward to the 2000s, my colleague Jim Larry, a great folklorist and part of the team that has been sustaining Scandinavian folk arts in the upper Midwest, came up with the idea of challenging me and some of my students and colleagues to work out a translation of that work, so it would become accessible to Finnish Americans and to scholars who are interested in that work. And that's what led to this idea. I was very much moved by the idea of creating a singable translation. It was Vern and Anya Sell, who were workers in the Finnish American community here in Madison, who really stressed the idea that a translation should also be singable so that people can then go between the languages if they want. And that was a great idea, but quite a challenge. And that's one of the things that took years, and various people, including Hillary Virtanen, who's listening in today, and then poor Marcus Cederström, got roped into that in various ways. And I'll turn the floor over to Marcus now.
Great, thanks, Tom. Yeah, the singable part, I think, is a really interesting aspect of this book, because they're translations, right? And they're translations that are not necessarily literal then. And we very much hope that people who do see this book, who use this book, take these songs and change them themselves. That this is, there's Tom holding up the book. This is a conversation, right? That's going through the book almost. And we hope that these songs do change and that you find lyrics that fit your experiences, that kind of speak to the originals as well. Because it's a challenge. Tom and I spent many nights in Sterling Hall at the University of Wisconsin-Madison campus, translating and singing to ourselves in our, Tom's got maybe a better singing voice than I do, but we managed at least, and it was a fun experience, and we're really excited about the final product here, and the book that's come from this. So Tom spoke a little bit about kind of who Simo Westerholm was, how this all started, and what we've done then is taken that work that was so important in really collecting and putting it all together. And along with the singable translations, we've added some additional essays to kind of talk a little bit more about the songs themselves, to give a little bit more context. We've done a little extra research there to really help fill in some of the missing pieces there. We've got this book then organized in 5 different sections. Farewells, arrived, at home, and on the turntable. And then we've actually got at the end there an essay from Jim Leary, who was so central to this project. So what I'd like to do here as we go along is talk a little bit about 2 of those sections, and actually play some music videos that Laulu Aika recorded back in November, one from each of those sections. So we'll start with the section that we call Farewells. And obviously when we talk about migration and songs of the Finnish migration, we're talking about the hundreds of thousands of people from Finland who came to the United States. And this migration really started in the, or picked up steam, I guess, in the 1870s. Of course, there were Finns coming earlier than that, but the big numbers were coming starting in the 1870s. And the reasons for coming to the United States were as varied as the people themselves. Some were seeking religious freedom, some were seeking economic opportunity, some were following family, friends, lovers, others were fleeing Russification. Some people, and I always find this really interesting, some people were just out for adventure. They just thought this is something fun, that we're gonna try this. And I think that's an important thing to remember. But all of them brought with them their language, their culture, their traditions, and their music. So this section really speaks, I think, to those experiences of saying goodbye and what it means to say goodbye and to leave people behind. We're going to play one song from this one called Amerikan Leski, America Widows. And these were the women left behind in Finland when their husbands or boyfriends traveled across the Atlantic. And it offers, I think, an interesting perspective on what migration from Finland meant to the people who were left behind and who did not follow necessarily. So Amerikan Leski was first published in 1905 as a broadside. It's often credited to Elisa Valkama, who was an American widow herself. And it's interesting because it's a reminder that, you know, while some of these people were planning on joining their husbands, some of them never did. And some of them never necessarily got much closure about that. There was never, you know, a letter saying thanks and goodbye. Some did send divorce papers or what it might be, but some just stopped getting those letters from their loved ones. And maybe they had found someone else in the new world, or maybe they had died. And there's that lack of closure as well. But no matter what happened, the Finnish women for whom this was a reality had effectively become widows. And their men were lost then to migration. Sometimes, as we'll see in this song, the women were blamed for their partner's disappearance. They had to endure gossip from their neighbors, all the while dealing with kind of this isolation and these struggles. So I think Amerikan Leski is a really interesting and good reminder of the effects of migration on not just the migrant, but on the people that the migrant left behind. So we're going to go ahead and play this song real quick. Make sure I have it queued up.
This tune is entitled Amerikan Leski, American Widow, sung by Elsa Valkama from Kalajoki. Not on any recording that we know of, but that's how it originated. It's about an angry, abandoned woman, as many were. Their boyfriends or husbands left them in Finland when the men came here. Amerikan Leski.
So I think, like I said, it's a really wonderful song. That YouTube clip that Anna just shared in the chat also has the English translations that are available to all of you. Along with these songs about farewells, along with these songs about loss and longing, were a lot of popular songs that were recorded with different record labels like Columbia, Victor, a lot of popular musicians that we still know and love today in the Finnish American music community: Arthur Kjellanden, Hiski Salama, Viola Turpinen. They appear in this book in Westerholm's collections, and there's some just fantastic songs in there that are a lot of fun to hear. Missing though were a lot of the women who were recording for these labels as well. So what Tom and I did was we added a few biographies, just very short biographies of some of the women who were playing music, who were recording music for Columbia, for example. So we've got short little paragraphs really on musicians like Esteri Hukkari, Katri Lammi, Eli Suokas, and there's just a lot of fun, really interesting stories behind these women, including so Katri Lammi, for example, was one of the people who left for Soviet Karelia in the hopes of creating this kind of utopian society over there. And she was actually then arrested during the Great Purge, for example. And there are these legends about when she was arrested, how she stripped down and stood on the back of the truck as they were taking her away, and sang to the people that she was saying goodbye to. So there's some really fascinating stories of the women who were also recording these really wonderful songs. What we're going to try again, we're going to try one more of these videos. Hope that it goes a little bit better this time. And this one is going to be Lumberjack by Arthur Kjellanden. I really enjoy this one a lot. It's a really humorous song. It's interesting because it talks about work. It talks about working conditions, and there's a lot of songs that were about work and working conditions for Finnish migrants in the woods, in the mines. We get a really good feel for what it was like to be a Finnish migrant laborer. And Kjellanden's songs often spoke to the experiences of working class immigrants, and were really pretty popular among Finnish labor activists. Hiski Salama's same thing. Hiski Salama actually was contracted by the Industrial Workers of the World, the IWW, to record and write a couple songs. Kjellanden, though, so when he's talking about these lumberjacks, he's talking about life in the camp, and he very quickly kind of lets people know what life was really like. He gives us this really wonderful juxtaposition of what he claims the poets are saying, and the poets have this romanticized view of working in the woods, and they're in this sublime forest surrounded by aspen, and they're eating fresh meat every day, and life is just really wonderful and easy and good. And Kjellanden, who worked as a logger and a carpenter across the US for years and years and years, quickly kind of corrects the unnamed poets who glamorize the work in the woods. And instead of fresh meat, for instance, it's a lot of beans. And when you're eating a lot of beans and you're going to sleep, in some bunks, you get the expected results. And so we have this really funny, I think it's entertaining, at least, kind of stanza where he's talking about these sorts of things. And Tom and I translated this as in the evening, late at night, when the men have gone to sleep, here and there, all out of sight, a melody does seep. Gentlemen who heard that sound would believe a band they'd found, or a hidden orchestra performing somewhere around. It's the beans they ate, you see, now tooting musically. And the concert goes all night, it's absolutely free. Aspens sigh with gas fumes nigh, the moon shines bright and full. It's poetic, yes indeed, on evenings warm or cool. It's a fun little song, for sure. So I'm gonna go ahead and we're gonna try sharing this one again. And so we get to hear Laulu Aika perform it. And then we will hand it over to Laulu Aika to talk with them a little bit and hear them perform live. So let's give this another shot here.
The next tune is called Lumberjacki, or Lumberjack, written by Arthur Kullander, who was also an immigrant here 80 to 100 years ago as well. Some fun songs. Lumberjacki.
Terveisiä korvesta, sydänmaalta saloltaan, villin honhon laitumilta metsän povestaan. Missä riemut kaupungin, poissa on ja muutenkin, pojat siellä edessä kuin munkit postaarin. Niinpä kärsivällisyys se yli kohti, lumberjacki kämpän jätti sekä pääteli. Yksi elo elättävä meillä on pivan, siis nyt pojat kaupungissa hiukan nukkitaan. Tunnelmasta korvien herrat laulavat.
There we have it. A fun song, I think. And with that, I am going to go ahead and bring Laulu Aika into this. The stars of the show here. We've got Ralph and Jana to start with. And Anna introduced them, of course, and we're going to talk a little bit. They're going to play a couple songs, and they've got the rest of the band basically hidden away right now, but they'll be joining us in just a few minutes. So, Ralph, you're a founding member of another band, actually. I know we're going to talk about Laulu Aika, but I wanted to start with Finn Hall, because Finn Hall has been just so important to Finnish American music, especially Finnish American music here in the Upper Midwest. Could you talk just briefly about Finn Hall and when you all got started and what the thinking was behind that?
Yeah, I wasn't necessarily a founding member. I was, Finn Hall had just kind of evolved from Al Recco, Dennis Halmy, both accordionist, Al being a vocalist, and Cheryl Paschke, violinist. That's about it. They had other revolving people, and whenever they played in Michigan, or whenever Orrin Tikkanen from Michigan would come down, they would be what became Finn Hall. They didn't really have a name. Then they went by the name of Keskiläinen and Pelimanit, Midwestern musicians, and then we called ourselves Minnesota Pelimanit, but for a while, but people didn't really know. So I started playing with them in the I think in the early '90s, and somehow, because nobody seemed to be organizing or seeking gigs. So I took that responsibility because nobody else wanted it. And so became kind of the manager, but it was a good experience, because here I was, a mandolin player who hadn't had much experience playing in groups. Well, I did with Koivun Kaiku, but that was a mostly a country group. Anyway, it turned out to be a great experience. We then called ourselves Finn Hall and began having more gigs than ever, and traveled to most of the Fin Fests since about '96, since I was really involved with them, and up until a little more than a year ago in Detroit, and made 2 recordings, traveled to Finland about 3 times with the group, played at Gaustinen, and one tour we did all around Finland where the members had some relatives or some roots, and played concerts and dances there. So it was really a great time. And so I involved a lot of travel and, like I said, recordings, and out of my interest with that, and Jana came along about 10 years ago. I found her in Seattle, or near Seattle. She could dance, so here she is. And she, come to find out, she played ukulele and piano, and so she became a part of Finn Hall playing bass. And I should point out that with Laulu Aika, we got organized about 4 years ago, I think. I'm not sure. After right before the Fin Fest was here in 17.
14.
4 years ago.
4 years ago.
4 years ago.
Sorry.
And we were seeking people we put on workshops seeking people who wanted to learn Finnish music and also wanted to learn to dance. And out of that, all these dance workshops and some music workshops, we've recruited people who are still with us, Lotta and Dan and Tamara and Eric. And there's some other kind of intermittent members who aren't, when they're not in college or busy with high school stuff, they've been with us too. And Johanna from Finn Hall. Yeah. So most of us are also in Finn Hall, which kicks up the members in Finn Hall to about 9 at times. And at FinFest in Detroit, Eric joined us too. So it's kind of they're both very fluid groups. But Laulu Aika being newer, and we play some of the same music, but because people have different interests, we've also played a lot of polskas and a lot of new tunes, a lot of tunes that Lotta would bring to the group or Eric, and so we learned them. It started off as me, Jana, and I teaching some old Finnish tunes, very familiar and popular ones from way back, but it quickly grew into this group effort. And we've played a lot of gigs right up until a year ago, when we were scheduled in April to come to Madison and play an event that you guys organized and had to be canceled. So we didn't do much during the year, being that we were struggling with the pandemic. But we did get together in the backyard of Luton Dan's quite, well, maybe once a month we tried, and we could distance there. And we hit good weather and we distance, and we'd have some lunch outside. And so we kept our repertoire up, and we're prepared somewhat for you guys asked us to do this video, which turned out quite well and was exciting to do it. And we hit the last warm day in November. It had been snowy and rainy and miserable. Suddenly there was a few warm days predicted. We picked one, and that's when the temperature went up to in the low 60s in that backyard.
And there were chickens in the backyard. Yeah. You'll see that on one of the songs. There's chickens.
Yeah, the chickens were loose, and later on they were dancing around. So that's a story on Finn Hall and Laulu Aika pretty much too.
Great. Do you want to introduce Laulu Aika? I know you've got some people hidden away there.
I'll stand over here.
And so, okay, Dan Rebar on guitar today, and Eric Platt on mandolin, and he also plays guitar and octave mandolin, and Lotta, who does the bulk of our vocals, on fiddle, and Johanna fiddle, and Tamara on percussion. Tamara Baker. So that's those of us today, and we don't know what it'll be like tomorrow. We may, who knows, if some of the pandemic loosens up, we will maybe get some of the other people back, or even new members, because even though we've progressed and evolved, we want to have new members who want to start to learn basic Finnish and Finnish American tunes, and if they have to be in the back row for a while, that's fine, but to get involved. And we do, most of the people, well, everybody but me can read music. So, but we don't mind if we get people that don't read music. They can learn by playing and singing and become part of it. So, okay.
That's wonderful. And so you all have, as you mentioned, you all have quite an impressive repertoire of songs here. But with this book, there were a few songs that were new, but there were also some that had some personal connections. And there's one in particular that had some personal connections to you, Ralph, that I think you're going to play in just a second. Could you talk a little bit about that song before you play it for us?
Yeah. I was so happy to receive that book, because I'm not fluent in Finnish to read the original. And when this came along, I quickly discovered that there was a tune called Kauhea Tapaturma Kaivanossa. Wait a minute.
Closer?
Yeah, Kaivanossa, a mine tragedy. And it happened in my hometown where I was born and raised in Ishpeming, Michigan. And it was a tragedy of 6 Finnish miners. There were 9 in the accident, but 6 died when the cage, the elevator, failed, and they dropped down 600 feet down the shaft. And this happened in New Year's Eve of 1898. And it's something that I had never heard of, even growing up in that town, because those things are just forgotten about. There were a couple other mine tragedies that I knew about, because my father remembered some of the people who died in them, no relatives, but the Barnes Hecker tragedy. But that too was forgotten about until recently when a monument was erected. So this tune was very meaningful. There's like 12 verses finished in the translations, and too much to do. And the music that was in the book, Jana played a little bit of it, and so when I learned it wasn't really from a Finnish source, it probably fit, but I started singing it to a tune, the first tune I remember of hearing, and it was in a minor key that my mother sang, and she had a name for it because it was a hymn, and the tune, the lyrics fit very well with it, with the phrasing. So we're gonna do one or three verses. They fit into the A or A B B, and then 3 verses in Finnish and 3 in English. And because there isn't time enough, we'd have to use the whole program to do the whole thing. So anyway, it also goes by other names, and I forget. I found them on YouTube. The same melody with other names about couples and love and so forth. And Carl Rohkonen, friend and music librarian, he jotted down the music and played it for me a long time ago, and he calls it his grandfather's waltz. And I called it at first my mother's waltz because it was something she played, and I remembered it from hearing it as a preschooler. But I didn't have an instrument to play minor keyed stuff on, and it didn't fit the harmonica, which I was already playing. So, should we play it now? Okay.
Let's do it. I'm excited.
Epästä kautta kumman kuulin kaijonta tämän vuoden alla, jotte kuulu halla. Kaivanotta suuresta Amerikan juuresta. Sieltä tieto tullut on, sanomaa suututon. Kaivos, jossa miehiä, lie suuria ja pieniä. Syväs on maan piinalta, kuudes osa viidasta. let the memory long resound of those dear men that death has found. On New Year's Eve they lost their lives and so made widows of their wives. From a mine both deep and low now come the tidings full of woe of those good miners in their prime and their sad deaths at New time. 500 feet beneath the ground they met their deaths with crashing sound. Those men did perish one, and now death took the short man and the tall.
Thank you for that. That was fantastic.
Thank
This is
you.
a really beautiful and haunting song, and I think it's really wonderful to hear you talk about this as kind of a way of remembering these historic events and bringing them to an audience today. I also love that you're playing with the music. Like I said early on, I mean, we hope that what's in this book gets changed. That people take it and make it their own. I think that's so important when we talk about folk music. Folklore is change and tradition is change, and we love seeing this so much. Absolutely fantastic. So I think we've got time for another probably 2 songs. And you know, a lot of these songs, they speak to love and loss and longing and all these things that I think a lot of people are feeling now during this pandemic and this need for community. I think one of the beautiful things about this music and Ralph, as you said earlier, that you were able to kind of come together in a backyard and still play and be a band. So I'm excited to hear another song or two if you want to introduce that, and I'll just turn it over to you and stop talking for a while.
Yeah, this next one is instrumental, but it is it's called D Mull Sotasi, D minor Schottish, or Yenka as Finns call them too, by Konsta Julhe. And Konsta Julhe was a fiddler in the Galstonen area who died in, I think, in the 60s, who wrote a lot of, he wasn't a professional musician, but he was a profession, yes, professional, because he wrote a lot of great tunes that have are played widely by Finns and Finnish Americans now too. I hadn't realized it till the last trip over. Well, I had heard that he might be, but till the last trip over when it was established, we're distant relatives, maybe the same great-great-grandfather. And had I known that before, maybe I would have picked up the fiddle and got inspired. Anyway, he wrote some beautiful stuff. He didn't write lyrics to them, and this one is strictly an instrumental called D minor Schottish. Were you dancing? I didn't look at the station.
We're dancing in our seats.
Yeah. Okay. Is there time for another?
Absolutely, yeah. If you want to play one or two more, we're here for it.
This is one of our favorites. Laulu Lisa, more Laulu in the sauna. And how many verses are there totally?
3 and 3 instruments.
Oh, okay, yes, yeah.
Yeah.
So give us kind of when you're the last one. Do the yip, yip, yip. Okay, Eric, you have.
Yes. That was fantastic.
Thank you.
Oh, that was good.
That's
Ralph, what was that one called again?
Laulu Elisa.
Ah, beautiful. I loved it. I think we have time for one more, and then we can open it up for questions after that. If you've got anything left in you.
Oh,
Ruiz Cookie?
what was that? Huh?
Sure, I'll get them mixed.
For what?
Ruiz Cookie?
Rice cookie. Oh, sure.
I'll
That's
get
an instrumental too.
You know so well. We need music though.
Ruiz cookie kind of translates to rye flowers. And I had probably heard it before, but
Put this chair and we can walk.
never learned it. So Eric found it and we listened to it on YouTube, and it was done by one of our favorites, Heikki Lahti, mandolin player, who died here within the last year or so.
Okay, just a little wardrobe change
And
there.
anyway, I met Heikki Lahti at the Fin Fest in Duluth in '92, and was so impressed by him. So whenever I was in Finland at the Galston Festival, I always sought him out, and he was a pleasure. And one night I was with Finn Hall playing, and he came up and handed me his mandolin, a Gibson, which I didn't own a Gibson yet. And he said, try it. For the set, I played Heikki Lahti's Gibson mandolin. So fun guy, great music. Okay, are we ready?
Okay.
All righty.
I can be a melody with you because we haven't.
Camera? Oh, camera will catch up, I guess.
Beautiful. Thank you so much.
You know, that's sort of another one of our favorites. We have about 40, 50 favorites.
That was fantastic. I'm going to go ahead now, I think, and turn it over to Anna a little bit here for the question and answer. But I want to really quickly also remind everyone, I'm putting this in the chat here. we've got a full playlist of six YouTube songs now from Laulu Aika that they recorded back in November on this really warm day. And Chris Anderson and Good Story Productions, I think Chris maybe is on the webinar right now, did just a fantastic job of putting those together. So they're available and ready for you to play them at any time of day. And of course, I've also added links then to Laulu Aika's website and to Finn Hall's website. So please do check that out. There's just some fantastic music out there. So I'll hand it over to Anna. I think there's some questions for the band, it looks like.
Yeah, we've got a few questions coming through, and one centers around the performances of these songs, and the question is wondering what the differences were, if any, between songs sung by female versus male musicians in terms of theme or delivery.
Oh,
You mean as far as the songs are written, or?
I think the question is a little more on about performances or perhaps if the lyrics might have changed at all for performances based on who was singing the tunes, or
Yeah, I don't think we've changed any that much, have we?
sometimes just a little bit, very tiny bit. I don't know if you can hear me.
Yeah,
Sometimes just a little bit, very tiny bit, but not much. Sometimes Rolf has alternative lyrics for things like the one we did today, the first one,
oh, yeah, yeah.
right? But otherwise, we usually
But
just
as
sing
far as
whatever's.
Gender
We get our hands
specific,
on.
yeah.
Yeah.
There's some tunes that one would think they were originally sung by males because they did so much of the recording, especially the Finnish American tunes. Well, Lotta sings them, and I don't see any problem with that. I mean, and there's been songs in Finn Hall that are written obviously from a woman's standpoint, and that Al Recco has sang, and he's the main vocalist in that group, and we've done them in. I don't see that we would not do them if we like a song, it has meaning, and I don't think it has to be necessarily explained all the time. Yeah.
okay, thank you. Also, we've had a couple of people asking what that last tune was. Could you repeat the title of that last tune you played?
The last one, oh, Ruis Kukkia. Ruis, R-U-I-S, Kukkia, K-U-K-K. IA, Kukkia. Flower.
Thank you. Thanks. We have another question here, and this is about the minor key, and there's a particular kind of sensibility that's invoked by the minor key, and whether that it is provokes an ancestral joy in spite of the sadness, and is that the role of the minor key in these tunes?
Well, it's often said about music in general that the minor key is sadder, more dramatic, and so forth. It's not necessarily sadder. It can be, depending upon, especially on a vocal, what the message is. And there's minor keyed minor keyed, kind of slow. The Christmas tree is ready. The children are clapping and singing, but to me, if you don't know the tune, it sounds kind of sad, but yet it's a joyful song. And in other cultures, Mexican, for instance, the rancheros, the peppy, sometimes polka music, major key, a lot of energy, but they're sad songs about being deported and bandidos and lost love. And so it doesn't have to be. Yeah, it doesn't have to be.
Great. Thank you. We have another question about whether Laulu Aika ever does Zoom jam sessions. And we've got some people out there who are practicing Finnish songs, tunes on their fiddles, and wondering if there's a virtual back row to your actual live performance back row.
You know, Yana's the tech person here.
Right, and then I go like this. So it just goes all the
Yeah,
way.
I don't know, are we
Yeah.
tech savvy enough that,
It could probably happen later, maybe later this spring or summer, depending on a lot of other things
Yeah.
happening.
Mm,
It's possible we could do that.
yeah,
We don't have anything planned,
right,
and we
yeah.
haven't really done that, but in fact, this is the first time we've been together since the recording in November.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
I mean, it could happen. Who knows?
well, yeah, first, because of the pandemic, I mean, we are doing this today, a special thing, but, you know, most of us are masked, and I just can't keep mine on, but until everybody has had their vaccinations, I don't foresee us doing very much in terms of the whole group getting together.
For a live
And
show.
we don't have big spaces. This is our house here, and yeah, I don't,
We
Any-
have our doors are open and our fans are going, so we mitigate the air, you know, so we're
yeah.
respecting the
As
pandemic.
Eric says, possibly later in the year, so if somebody wanted
Yeah.
to send a request or an inquiry.
Mhm.
Yeah.
To me,
Absolutely.
uh,
Yes,
you
yeah.
can list my email there.
Mhm. Yes.
Sure, and maybe in the meantime, people can tune into those wonderful videos that Chris Anderson recorded of you
Yeah,
all, and
yeah.
you can practice in the back row
Yeah,
in, in
Yeah.
St. Paul where you recorded.
If they had specific questions about what key, well, the keys are usually obvious, but maybe not, and the chord changes. Or the, for instance, Almeda Konleski, that's a 3/4 time, but it's more of a polska, the way we play it and the way we heard it, rather than a waltz. It's not a danceable waltz. It's a polska beat played very differently. Yeah.
We've got another question about a recorded comic song, and I don't speak Finnish, so please everyone forgive me, but the chorus apparently goes Kila Kila Testa Selvitan, Kisun Kisun Kaino Keksitan. Is that anything that rings any kind of a bell, a comic tune?
Not right now.
No, Marcus and Tom, not familiar.
Yeah. If somebody found the title in a book and you know, with the lyrics, we would look at it, or with the music. Yeah. So some of the tunes that are humorous are, of course, I can't speak with this, are very may have been adapted from something else and just sang to locally. And I think of there's a Finnish-Swedish song that a bunch of Wisconsin musicians were driving through. No Norwegians in Dickeyville, Wisconsin. And you've probably heard that. There's no Norwegians in Dickeyville. They just took a tune and made up these lyrics as they were driving through, and people sing it today. Yeah, cute song. Okay,
I think that's sort of, I mean, if anyone else has more questions for the group or for Tom and Marcus, that exhausts the questions that I've seen. We can also provide a link to some collections that are being digitized and made accessible through the Mills Music Library, and there are lots of Finnish American recordings and Finnish recordings that are being presented through UW-Madison and the Mills Music Library online that we can that people can check out on their own, and we can provide those links for folks too.
And let me add to that, you know, there the anthology that we're talking about has about 80 songs in it, but there were some 800
Okay, yeah.
recordings, 78 recordings that were done by Finnish Americans over time. So there's a rich trove of material out there that is maybe in your attics, maybe these old 78s that you see people have stored. And one of the goals is to, and I think that the Mills Music Library has done a really fantastic job at digitizing those and making those accessible to people again in different kinds of ways, because this is part of Finnish American heritage. It's part of people singing about their experiences and sharing those from generation to generation. And what's so inspiring about hearing the work that Laulu Aika is doing is just how that's continuing that conversation with past Finns and Finnish Americans and taking it into the future. So I'm just so grateful to have gotten to listen to you today and hear all your wonderful performances.
And we're grateful that you came out a translation of that book.
Yeah.
Because I'm not fluent in Finnish and it would struggle with the original. And I've been staying up nights recently reading more of it. And I'm just amazed at what's in there and what I've learned. I didn't know what a broadside was. What are you guys talking about? Yeah, now I know what a broadside is. It's not being hit in the...
Yeah, it's not just a car accident. Yeah.
Yeah, but so much, and there was a lot of familiar tunes in there, the Finnish American stuff, but so much more that is very moving. Very, very great experience to have. And so you should have the name and address of that where people can order that now, please. Because that needs to be distributed and read and treasured. Yeah,
well, I want to thank Jimmy Treskelin, who did the layout for the book, and also he works for Kaustinen and the Finnish Music Association, because there was a lot of rights that had to be done to make sure that there were the rights to the translation and the publication. And then the University of Wisconsin Press was a wonderful partner to help bring this out and make it available both in North America and in Finland. And so I hope people will find out about it and get to use it. And I'm really grateful that you've been enjoying reading it.
Yes.
It's cool.
Anna, can I jump in real quick? So Drew, Dr. Ferguson here asked about the women and playing music. And one of the things that we found when we were doing these kind of short biographies was that a lot of the women were playing and singing more operatic music maybe than some of the men were. But it really is a really diverse array of types of music and subjects. And as the band was saying, that a lot of these kind of topics that they're singing about, these themes that they're singing about, weren't necessarily gender specific, right? Interestingly, for example, we've got Hiski Salama, who sings about the dishwasher's polka, a really famous song.
Yeah,
and he's singing about a young woman who's working as a domestic servant. But we do get more of kind of the America widow sorts of songs when we talk about some of the women who are singing. But a lot of, like I said, a lot of operatic music was being recorded by the women. So I suppose that's maybe one of the differences that we've seen. But otherwise, yeah, I think Laulu Aika and everyone there was kind of right on in terms of the different types of music.
I just saw a note from Hillary that there are Copper Country people in the audience. So, hey,
yeah,
we're gonna see you.
Maybe we'll be there this summer again. We hope to.
Yeah.
So do you have time for another comment that I can? Yeah. In thinking about what music we play, what inspires us, I couldn't help but thinking about what we've done with, well, first of all, with Finn Hall in the past, Music, as we know, as folk musician, it isn't a stagnant thing that's focused on one culture. It's cross pollination. So we're not ashamed to play Swedish music. We play a lot of it, okay, because that's a part of our culture. Russian music, beautiful. But in that vein, in 2012, I got interested in Waila music from the Southwest, from the Tohono O'odham Reservation, who played in a Tex-Mex style, mainly because I'd like to dance cumbia. So I researched it and got in touch with help, a band from out there, Gertie and the T.O. Boys, and we did a project with them. We went out there early to FinFest that November, and we learned some of their tunes, they learned some of ours, and we played at that FinFest with them on several occasions. Gertie has been here for FinFest in 14, I think, and we had her play at dances, and we played with her again on some big stages, and then with their whole band. And Gertie was here last summer, the summer before, right? And we went up to the Aura Jamboree, and we formed a band with Gertie and us and some local musicians and played Waila music. And in that process, of course, Gertie and the boys learned some Finnish tunes. So if you go to Tucson and go to her gigs, you might hear Ratek on, played like a polka, but more like a cumbia. And they won't sing it, but that and maybe Kulkuni Valsi and Lololisa, yes, like a cumbia. So there's that aspect that is just so rewarding. And then the FinFest here in 2014, I got the notion to bring, because I love the Mustalainen music, so I arranged for Hilja Granfors to come here with two of her musicians. They played at FinFest here. The first woman Roma singer from Finland ever. So those are the rewards of us playing our music, but not afraid to look at other stuff and play it for the pure joy of it. So that's all mine.
I mean, that's what's so wonderful about all of this, right? That there is this kind of, like you said, cross-pollination, and people are learning from each other and inspiring each other and playing each other's music in just really beautiful, wonderful ways. So thank you for that. It's fantastic.
Any other questions? You guys want to contribute anything? Any last one?
I got nothing.
Okay.
I'm not seeing any more questions come in the Q&A, but do you have any, with the pandemic, obviously the music scene has had to change a lot for the period, and does Laulu Aika or do Finnhall have any plans for performances coming up this summer at all, or is the foreseeable future going to be sort of doing productions like this, or doing online performances for the foreseeable future?
Nothing planned at present. When the weather loosens up, I'm sure we'll do more backyard stuff, especially until everybody gets inoculated. And with Finn Hall, the same. We've slowed down, haven't done anything for the year because of that, and some of the members' health problems and so forth. So we will do stuff again, but it'll be probably on a smaller scale and not a lot of traveling with Finn Hall. But who knows? We had to cancel out going to Winnipeg last September, I think. So they said they'll have us back. So we're hoping that will loosen up and they'll let us across the border to play a concert and dance up there with Finn Hall. And as I say, with Finn Hall, we have most of Laulu Aika is in there anyway. So.
And I know that I think we all miss it.
Yes.
We miss it deeply, and that because it's how we're wired. And so we've stayed connected and we share as much as we can. And we try to get outside together before the snow flew, and then we stayed in contact, and now we're together, and it just feels like Christmas, having all of the music and being
Yeah, that's a
together.
good,
So we look forward to it too, because it's good soul stuff.
So maybe there'll be another concert dance in Madison. You need a-
We would love that. I do have one or two more questions actually that have rolled in. One about Viola Turpinen, the accordion player who's very popular and recorded with record labels like Victor and Columbia. Is her music still being played?
Well, we play it. We love it. I don't know why, but I think it is because when we, especially with Finn Hall, we travel around, we've played a lot of her songs, and people will approach us and they remember seeing Viola Turpinen at dances in the past in northern Minnesota, Michigan, northern Wisconsin. So there's still people that remember that. And our accordionist singer Al Recco remembers of sitting in front and listening to her music and is very inspired by it. And Al is in his 80s now, but he plays her music. We play her music. Yeah.
There's also a Viola Turpinen festival that goes on in Wisconsin as well.
Yes.
So they're
Yeah.
big fans out there. Yeah.
Yeah, I haven't done that because it usually conflicts with some other weekend activity, but yes.
We have a question here about archival, local archival Finnish music. And for those who have or who know of collections of music that are housed in local collections, maybe Marcus or Tom, could you speak to the best way to make local music recordings and collections available?
Yeah, it's a great question. It's a tricky question. I wish Nate Gibson, I think he was on the call, could answer this one. There's a few different things to do. One, I would start by kind of reaching out to a local historical society or a local college or university. A lot of those places are great kind of repositories for any records that exist, any both like records that we listen to, but also written records that are good at making it more available to a general public. The University of Wisconsin-Madison, the Mills Music Library is a great resource for figuring out what can be done, not necessarily for taking all of the music, but a good place to get some ideas. They've done some really wonderful work in making a lot of these songs available via streaming through their website. We've also seen, as I think we've seen today, right? One of the fun ways of doing this is partnering with bands and seeing, can we get a recording that we can get up on YouTube of a band playing this music? It's a great way to remind people that the music is there, is living, is changing, and is ready to be listened to and learned and played and danced to. So there's a lot of different ways to do that. There's not one easy answer. But I would say if you do have a bunch of music, reach out to me, to Anna, as part of the project. We can put some contact information in the chat, and we'll see what we can do about helping out or directing you and to the people who can help out if we can't.
And I might add that we, with Finn Hall ends, not so much of Laulu Aika, we got a few, but Finn Hall, there's stuff on YouTube if you look under, look for Finn Hall under that heading, or Eric Yakola, he did a lot of recording of some of our stuff. And Yana, you posted stuff on Yana Tutila and Tamara on not on YouTube, but more Facebook. So if you do a little digging with the names and on Facebook and YouTube, you'll come up with quite a few of our songs and gigs. And we've learned a lot. I have learned so much from listening to YouTube songs, folk music. And you can slow down the rhythm so I can learn it at a slower speed before I start racing. Okay.
And we've got Jim Leary pointing out some collections at the Mills Music Library too in the chat. You can get those links to Mills Music Library where you can find more Finnish American collections. I think that does it for the questions so far that have rolled in, but we've had a lot of appreciative comments in the Q&A section as well. I think people have been really enjoying the performances and dancing along in their homes.
Well, great. Thank you so much, everyone.
Also, this book exists, that Jim Leary's collection. If you're looking for really fascinating chronicles of some of the performers in the upper Midwest, Wisconsin in particular, folk songs of another America, field recordings from the upper Midwest, 1937 to 46.
Okay, is that the one that goes with the accordions of the cutover?
No, this is the newer book.
Oh, okay.
This is the newer book.
I guess I need to update.
Yeah.
An update. So we have that one.
By the way, can somebody copy the chat and send it to Ralph and Juliana, please?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Since we don't have the chat up, so we can't see that right now. Thank you.
We can do that for sure.
Yeah, because there's all sorts of greetings coming in from people. They're talking about their memories of Yola Torpenen. They're talking about hearing those melodies in different halls over time. So it's super cool to look at the comments, and I'm so grateful to see them.
Yeah, that's great. Thank you.
Yeah, I can remember from so many gigs with Finn Hall and some of these old halls we played at, the Finnish halls and labor halls, and the old timers coming up, and not so much at questions, but reminiscing. They need to do that about when they heard this music and so forth, and reminiscing about their families in Finland.
Yeah, and that, that's just such a great aspect of what FinFest is always about. It's that getting together and being Finnish American together, and sharing that with people who are interested in Finnish culture in one way or another. And so I think that this has been kind of a piece of that, done on a Zoom format, a little bit different from the usual, but still capturing some of that wonderful aspect that has been FinFest all these decades.
Great. Thank you so much, everyone. This was a lot of fun.
Thank you.
We've got more of these coming up. This FinFest is kind of a year-long event this year. So be sure to check that out. We've got more music events coming up. And we've got more part of a lecture series on kind of Finnish literature and culture and history that's also going on. So please do check that out. But thank you everyone for coming.
Thank you.
And this will be archived or available.
Yep. So we'll stop recording here in just a little bit, and then we'll work on getting this uploaded and available on the FinFest website and also on the Center for the Study of Upper Midwestern Cultures YouTube channel. And so we'll be sure to get that sent out to everyone so that everyone has access to that as well.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We can work out a tune list as well. A few people have been asking about the names of the tunes, and we can we'll make that available as well.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Very good. Okay. So.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Next
Thank
meeting.
Thank you all. Thank you so much.
We'll pop in here and say bye.
Thank you for joining us.
Bye-bye.
Popping in. Bye.
He does.
See you.